Welcome to part 2 of a 6-part series where I'm going to walk you through the phases of my real estate investing journey from $0 to $45 million worth of real estate that I've bought without using any of my own money. In part 1, I talked about school and the things that I did and the knowledge that I learned over the first couple years before I started investing. So make sure to check out that video. It's up here if you missed it, and we'll link it at the end. No matter where you are in your real estate investing journey, you are in one of these phases. And if you're not super far along in your journey and far along these phases, there's nothing wrong with that, and it's a good thing to watch this entire series so you know what's coming up in your future. This is when Lucas and I got started investing in real estate. We had learned enough through our school and we were ready to take action, and the plans we made did not come to fruition, but that's okay. We bobbed and weaved and made it happen anyway. So the first thing we did was we dreamed, and we dreamed big, or so we thought. Our goal was to buy 1 rental property a year for 10 years, and at the end of 10 years, we would have 10 rental properties. The only issue was we didn't have 20% down. We didn't make enough money and didn't have enough money saved to put 20% down on a rental property, and that's the only way we knew how to buy rental properties, was to put 20% down in cash. Our plan was to borrow money from a private lender and buy and fix up a property, then sell that property, pay back the private lender their money plus interest, and anything left over, the profit, we would use to put down on a rental property. So that meant for 10 rental properties, we had to buy 20 houses, 1 house to fix and flip for the down payment, and the other one was a rental property. We didn't see any holes in that plan because that's all we knew. If we stuck to the plan, I would have 8 rental properties right now. Fortunately, I have 280 rental properties right now because we figured out another way. Let's go back and start with our very first property now. This was 2014, and we looked at probably 50 different properties. We talked to some real estate agents, we looked at some bank-owned properties, we looked at some wholesaler properties, and couldn't get one to work. Now, we were being super conservative on our numbers and honestly didn't really know how to build a budget and what to look for. We were just looking for a property that we could be all in for $100,000. Our private lender told us he would give us $100,000 to buy and fix up a property. Anything over that was gonna have to come out of pocket, and as I said earlier, we didn't have any money to come out of pocket. We ended up buying it off the MLS and started the rehab, but during that we discovered the BRRRR process and the refinance process we're gonna talk about in a minute. Quick side note, before we went to refinance it, we went to 20 different banks and they all told us no. For starters, we were going to Bank of America and these big box banks that have nothing or don't want anything to do with refinance loans or investment properties. Then we started to go to the right banks, but we were saying the wrong things, and finally we got one bank to take a chance on us. If you're told no a lot, that's normal. Just continue to ask until you're told yes. Eventually somebody or some bank or some lender will say yes. You just have to keep asking. All right, let's break down the deal. We bought the property for $77,000 and it needed about $40,000 worth of work, but Lucas and I did everything we could on evenings and weekends and worked our butt off to take that $40,000 rehab down to $23,000. So we were all in this property for $100,000. Our plan was to sell it for $125,000, $130,000 grand, and like I said, take that profit and put 20% down. But during the rehab process, we discovered the BRRRR's method, and specifically the refinance part of the BRRRR method. We were told from a local real estate investor that we are able to go to a small local bank, well, the right small local bank, that will give us a new loan, meaning they will cut us a check for up to 80% of the appraised value. As I said, we had $100,000 in the deal, and we owed the private lender 8% annualized interest. The project took us 6 months, so 8% annualized would be $4,000. We had $100,000 in the property, and we owed our private lender back $100 plus $4,000, so $104,000 grand. We got the property appraised, and it appraised for $125,000. So our numbers were actually pretty on for our first property. Unfortunately, 80% of $125,000 is $100,000. So we were not able to give our private lender their interest back on the deal, and private lenders don't lend you money to not make any money. We had to get creative. More on that at the end, where I'll show you how we made this happen. Before we get into how this wrapped up, I got a couple ginormous topics that I want to introduce to you that got introduced to me at the time. The first one is the passive wealth trifecta. We bought this property in 2014. Today is 9 years later. 9 years later, the property is worth well over $200,000, but let's keep it at that for simple math. So the property went from $125,000 to $200,000 in just just 9 years. So it's well on its way to doing what real estate does, which is double in value every 15 years. And we didn't have to do anything to get that value increase. We just wrote appreciation and inflation, and we used the tenant's rent to maintain the property. The other side of the coin, though, is that $100,000 mortgage we took out from the bank has gotten paid down to $70,000 through principal pay down from rent. We also got about $20,000 in tax-free rent, but that's not really what this is about. This is about us going from $25,000 in equity to $130,000 in equity in just 9 years without using any of our own money. That $130,000 is an extremely interesting number because according to Vanguard, the average American 401k is 129 grand. So we were able to surpass the average 401k without using any of our own money with just one rental property. Now I understand that we do have $45 million worth of real estate, but we did work our butt off to get there. Now let's talk about some of the fruits of that labor. Every single day, our properties go up in value an average of $3,000. That is assuming only a 3% growth rate. So that is extremely conservative because over the past couple of years, we've probably tripled that. So conservatively, our properties go up $3,000 every single day. Again, the other flip side of that coin is the debt pay down and the principal pay down through rent. Every single day, our mortgages get paid down $3,500. Add on top of that about $1,500 in net positive cash flow. That means every single night when I go to bed, I will have made $8,000 without doing anything. I worked my butt off to buy the real estate, but I have other people managing it. I use other people's money to buy it. That can add up very, very quickly. Now it's not direct deposited into my pocket, but it is net worth that's added every day. The biggest issue in this phase was not being able to pay back our private lender their $4,000 in interest we owed them. Fortunately, we had built a good relationship with that private lender, and even more fortunately, we had another deal in the pipeline that was an absolute home run. So we talked to the private lender, we gave him a little extra interest, and we told him we would pay him back on the next deal. He took a leap of faith in us, and it paid off because that next deal we were able to pull back enough money of the private lender's money plus interest to pay them back on that deal, and we were able to pull out an extra $4,500 on that money to pay back him on the original deal. So he was made whole, it just took him a little bit longer. Now he's made over $500,000 on us in the past 8 years, so he's very glad he took a chance on us and extended that chance, and we're glad he did as well. The two biggest wins in this phase was discovering the BRRRR method, which we already talked about, and if you want to understand a little bit more about the BRRRR method, check out this video above where I explain the entire method in simple terms with real life examples. But more importantly, in my opinion, I discovered the power of debt. Properly leveraging debt is how wealthy people create their wealth. Wealth is created through owning assets, but you have to have money to buy assets. Fortunately, assets are such a powerful tool that you can borrow money to buy them. I always thought that if I was going to create wealth, I was going to have to make a lot of money at my day-to-day job. I was going to have to save a lot of my money. I was going to have to put money in 401k, and I was going to have to get lucky somehow. I didn't know that I could borrow other people's money to create my wealth. So this is what I call the ABCs of wealth, where A stands for asset, B stands for borrow, and C stands for cash flow. What you do is you borrow money to buy an asset that produces cash, take the cash that asset produces, and pay who you borrowed the money from. All the while you own that asset, and that asset is the wealth creator. Everybody that you know has created wealth, substantial wealth, has done this. The core of wealth creation, this is what happens. You borrow money by properly leveraging debt to buy an asset that produces cash and increases equity. Then you use that cash flow and that equity that's produced to pay off who you borrowed the money from, and you own that asset. And as I'm gonna say for the 1,000th time in my life, probably more, assets are what creates wealth. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and get ready for next week's episode where we're gonna talk about investing heavily with a full-time job. You watching this probably have a full-time job, so you're gonna learn a lot about how we invested with a full-time job and started families. See you on the next one.